Hello everyone, and welcome to another modding video. This is not the second part of the xylvania units videos, which will be up after this probably, tonight hopefully, is what I'm planning on. But I wanted to put this out first because I feel like it's a bit more important. And in this video I'm just going to be talking about something that it's been on my mind for a while, and that's just that what I've noticed is with these recent modding videos that I've been making and with how people have been showing an interest in Battalion Wars again, I realized there's no good place really for Battalion Wars fans to talk about the game, or either of the games. And there's obviously not a good place to discuss modding either in like an organized fashion. I've pretty much just been responding to YouTube comments about it. And I did say before that I'm hopefully going to be streaming over winter break when I mod, just so people can see what I do and if they're interested in it, because it takes me a while to get out these videos, so that would be a good way to hopefully show people modding on a more regular basis. But besides that, I was also going to make a tutorial for how to mod, which is something that I'll try to do over winter break as well. But the other thing is, going back to not having a good place to discuss the game, we decided, and by we I mean Ephraim and I, decided to come up with a way to make a good place for people to discuss the game in general, and to kind of keep track of what we're doing in terms of modding, and a good place to ask us questions. So he made a Reddit page because we couldn't think of a better way to do it at the moment, because making a website would be a lot of work. A Steam group didn't seem like a good idea because we figured not a lot of Nintendo fans use Steam. It's more of a PC gamers type thing. But there's a lot of Nintendo pages on Reddit, so we did that. We made a Reddit page for Battalion Wars, and I'll have a link to it in the description. You can go there, you can make a discussion, asking questions. You can post in our discussions just about the game. And while we made it, he made it pretty much, I think, what we both did with the intention of being able to share modding knowledge, which is also why we have a wiki page connected to the Reddit, so you can go there and kind of read up on some of the information we have, which at the moment we haven't put down a whole bunch of stuff because there's a lot of stuff to put down to document, but you still can see what we've written so far, and we'll be adding to that as we go along. And hopefully this will be a good way to kind of branch out as well and get more people involved in modding. That's our plan anyway, so be sure to go there and just kind of do whatever you want. Post, ask questions. As I said, it's pretty much open to anything, and it doesn't even have to be related to modding. We want it to just be a place for people to discuss Battalion Wars in general, because there's not really a good place to do that right now. I don't know of any good websites that exist for it, and I know that there's a Battalion Wars wiki, but that's not really a good place to discuss things with other people. So from what I've seen, it's just people on YouTube kind of talking to each other, which isn't the best way to do it, so that's what we decided on.
Commander, the enemy is established.
Now, for the remainder of this video, I am just going to be showing 2-2 as xylvania with a bunch of edits to it. Pretty much I wanted to try a 3-way battle, and 2-3 only has air transports and grunts, whereas this one at least has light tanks. So I decided to try this one, even though if we can get units to be in missions where they aren't normally already present, it would be ideal to do 2-3 instead, because the map for that one is just set up better. But speaking of maps, something else I could say is, I think Ephraim, I remember him saying he switched around a couple of levels in this game, and it worked. So pretty much he like switched 2 levels, and that just resulted in everything being set up, like all the units, the objectives and everything, kind of being set up in a different map. Obviously it's all jumbled, but I think it did load So that's something that I definitely want to try at some point. Because if we can get that to work, then at the very least we can kind of mess around on different maps with units from other maps just by switching the levels around. It's not ideal, obviously, but it would be a good way to try things out. Also, before I forget, those frigates only had 5 health. I changed their total health values so that they would be easily killable by a single rifle grunt. And then I changed the generators to have 0 health so that I could just get past those 2 objectives really fast and not have to deal with them. If I ever did actually like try to work on this and make it an actual level as xylvania, it would be kind of neat to make it sort of partially a stealth type level, which would be weird. I mean, the only time we've seen stealth levels in Battalion Wars have been the recon levels, really. But it would work, and it would kind of make sense, given how xylvania is supposed to be kind of weak in this level. And my idea was you would have to take advantage of the fact that the 2 other armies are fighting each other and try to sneak by when you have the chance. And also, since you have no way to really effectively deal with gunships, you have to rely on the anti-air veterans on both armies to take each other out. Like that. Granted, as it is right now, it doesn't always work the way I want it to, because I just kind of threw in some more frontier units around the level and hoped that things would work out. And it kind of did. At this part, the frontier and Tundran units fought, which is why all the Tundran bazooka veterans and the tower is just destroyed now. But that doesn't always happen. Like, when I've been testing it, it happens differently every time. Because sometimes the Tundran units win, and then you end up with some Tundran gunships over here because they fly in from the airbase. And regardless of, like, at this part, regardless of who wins that battle, it's still tricky to try to sneak by the gunships. Because if they spot you, you just have to run, and then you're going to lose some units. And it's also not easy because they're all set to attack on sight. So changing that might be necessary. Otherwise it is really hard to not be spotted. I should also mention I don't really have a clear objective right now because you can't finish the level as xylvania, since the frontier units need to get close to the transport copters to trigger that objective. So pretty much all I could do was mess around. And I decided to try to go capture the airbase, which turned out to be pretty difficult, actually. And yeah, at this part, like, there's those 2 gunships, and there's no good way to get around them. Especially because of how the map's set up. Which, as I mentioned before, 2-3 would be a much better one, because this level is just kind of linear and not very good for a 3-way battle, in my opinion. Also, you notice that grunt I transferred to a moment ago was in his T stance. That's because 2 of the xylvanian grunts that I added have weird issues, and I think that has to do with the fact that I spawn them so close to each other. Something like that is my guess, because that's the only time I've seen it, is in this level in 2-3 with xylvanian grunts. And one of them is stuck in the T stance and the other one has this weird graphic issue. But the other ones turned out fine, so I'm not totally sure why that happened. And yeah, as you just saw, the anti-air towers took out the frontier gunships. But now if the Tundran gunships fly in, there's nothing to distract them from my units, which is bad. But luckily there is a POW camp up ahead, which has Frontier anti-air veterans that I can use. So at this point, I'm going to try to sneak over there. Oh yeah, and this is post-commentary, by the way, in case you're wondering. Because this level is such a mess, and I had to kind of play through it a couple of times to make sure that it would work properly, so I figured whatever. I'll just do post-commentary. And if whichever run through it happens to work out, I'll just go with that one. Let's see, what else can I talk about? Since after this video I'm putting up the second part of the xylvania units videos, I'm not totally sure what I'm going to move on to next. I think I might have mentioned it in the comments a little bit. I had some ideas. I guess the first thing I wanted to work on was getting online missions. Well, online custom missions to work properly. Not really custom missions, but getting, like, single-player levels to properly work online. Which, as I said before, it does work, but there have been some issues, and it's not flawless yet. Like, we actually got a co-op level to work as a versus level. Which one was it? It was from Tundra with Love. We got that one to work, where one player controlled Tundra and the Frontier, and the other player controlled xylvania. But single player is a bit more tricky, because you have to make changes to it. And while we've got it to load, we haven't actually got it to properly let player 2 control. So that's something that I'll need to do. And right there we managed to capture the airbase, but the problem is all the Frontier units died, so now there's no way to get rid of those remaining gunships. And also you may have noticed the airbase didn't change its form to a xylvanian airbase. That's because the level isn't set up to have an xylvanian airbase, I guess. It is under our control though, and additional Tundran gunships won't spawn from it. But of course, there's not going to be any xylvanian gunships or air units that spawn from it either, since it's not set up to spawn any. And now, as a lone grunt, I must run. And run, run, run. I wasn't totally sure what I was going to do, because running back to the beginning of the level would be kind of difficult, and I'm not sure if the Tundran gun towers are still alive over there. So that would have been hard, but luckily I remembered that I had these Frontier POWs over here, so I decided to go that way and hope that they wouldn't hit me before then. And luckily, no assault veterans were still alive. Like, that worked out really well, that only 2 anti-air veterans were here. Which did a great job of doing exactly what I hoped they would do. I was hoping one of those would have med packs, but none of them did. But they shot down all the gunships, so it worked out. And that's pretty much it for this level. So, again, not much else I can do, especially as just one grunt. There wasn't anything else I could really do at that point. But hopefully in the future we'll figure out how to add units to levels and be able to make something interesting out of this. Hopefully you enjoy that little bit of modding in this video. It wasn't the most interesting thing, but it was something. And be sure to go check out the Reddit page, and I will see you there. So, goodbye.